Hello, everyone. As you know, starting a new business is hard enough, but starting one in a new country is another level of challenge. That's why we've invited Jennifer Couldrey, professional EOS implementer, to share with us some practical advice on how to address the challenges of growing your business when you immigrate to Canada through the startup visa program. Jennifer will give us some valuable insights on the key components of running a successful business, how to build a strong team, how to maintain two-way communication. So let's get started. Hi, Jen. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Anna. Thanks so much for having me.
Let's dive in and talk about scaling business to Canada, how to address those challenges.
Perfect. So, fundamentally, when we are looking at businesses, there's three key things that it takes to build a really great business. So, we call those things vision, traction, and healthy. So, vision means how do you make sure that you are totally on the same page with your team about where you're going and how you plan to get there, right? Because if you're not on the same page with what that direction looks like, everyone's just working hard, but they're not rowing in the same direction. Once you're clear and everyone's aligned behind that vision, then the question becomes how do you really make sure that all that effort you're putting into your business is actually getting you traction towards that vision? So, how do you put in place the right structure, the right systems, the right disciplines and tools and clarity of expectations so that as everyone is working in your business, they're actually getting you closer and closer to achieving that vision? And the third piece of running a really great business is having a really healthy team, right? So having a team where people feel comfortable speaking openly and honestly, they raise issues, they share their ideas, they feel comfortable getting those concepts out on the table so that you can address them, have fun working together and really be productive in achieving your goals.
That sounds like an ideal scenario, to be honest. Um, so if we get closer to the ensuring of those three components, how to implement each one of them.
So, EOS stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. So, this is a proven system of simple tools that help you run your business better. I believe right now it's 35,000 companies have worked with an EOS implementer around the world to help them implement these tools, but the tools go much broader than that. There's close to a million companies who have used EOS in their businesses. So it's a really well regarded system. But what I love about EOS is that it's just really simple and anyone can use it. Running your business successfully in Canada or anywhere really. There's two different kinds of businesses, right? There's businesses that are doing really well and they're working hard, but they're getting the results they want. And then there's other people who are working really hard, but they're frustrated and they feel stuck and they're just not getting the results they want. So the fundamental premise behind EOS was what is the difference between these two types of companies and how can we help teach those companies who are frustrated more of the skills and more of the tools that those really successful companies are using. So that's the premise behind EOS. So the answer to those questions fundamentally lies in the six key components of your business. So the first, of course, is just getting clear and aligned around what your vision is, right? The second is having great people on your team, right? Without great people who are really aligned with your culture and are really good at their jobs, you're never going to be able to achieve your vision. The third is data. So, how do you have visibility into whether things are working or not in your business, right? People can tell stories and talk about what's happening, but if you don't see real data behind it, it's hard to know what's working and what's not working.
Right.
The fourth key component of your business is the issues component, right? So, this is about how do you solve issues as they come up? We all have issues. Issues come up all the time. If you're normal, as issues come up, we just throw duct tape and twine around them, trying to get them off our desk as quickly as possible. But then we end up with a whole business that's held together by duct tape and twine. So, how do we get really good at building a culture where issues are raised in a proactive, appropriate way, and then actually solve those issues at the root and make them go away forever? The fifth key component of your business is the process component, right? And this is especially if you're looking at franchising your business to Canada. That's where this element comes into play. Is how do you make sure everyone's clear on the right and best way to get the most important things done so that you have that consistency and scalability in your business? And finally, the traction component. So, how do you make sure people are working on the right stuff and they're keeping each other accountable to making progress against those things? So, fundamentally, that is what EOS is all about. So, how
Yeah.
do you make sure you and your team are clear and aligned on what your vision is? So, for this, we really make this very simple and say, let's just get aligned on the answers to 8 questions. So we put these 8 questions in a tool called the Vision Traction Organizer. We start off with the vision side, right? So this is the big picture of your business. So what are your core values? What are those things that you stand for that make for really great team members? Your core values are meant to drive culture internally. And this is so important, right? Especially if you're a
Mhm.
business owner who is looking to build a franchise, build an extension of your business in Canada. How do you make sure that that new team in Canada is embodying those values that have made your business so successful to date? So that's where we want to get clear on who we are at our core.
Right.
The next piece is core focus. So this is just getting you really clear around why it is your business exists and what it is you do better than anybody else, right? So this has been called vision statement or mission statement by different folks. We just want to get really clear on what it is we're focused on so we don't get distracted by opportunities as they come up that really aren't core to who we are. So core focus can really be we are the best in class at landscaping high end gardens, right? It's whatever it is you are best at, just to make sure that the whole team is using that as a decision making filter, so they're not getting distracted by stuff that isn't really true to who they are at their core, right?
Right.
The next question is, what is your 10-year target? We just want to make sure we're all on the same page with that number one long-term North Star goal, right? Then we look at your marketing strategy. So this is a really simple way of saying, who should we talk to and what should we say with our limited sales and marketing budgets and resources, right? Who is our ideal client? What makes those people unique? And then what do they care about? How do we serve them better than anybody else?
Right.
Then finally is your 3-year picture. So this is just getting, again, this is all about alignment, right? Getting your team on the same page within 3 years from now. What is this business going to look like? So that you're all driving towards the same destination. So that's the vision side of the Vision Traction Organizer, the VTO. The second side here is the traction side. So this is about, what is the plan to get there? How are we actually going to make this happen?
Yeah.
So here we have 3 more questions. So what is your 1-year plan? So by the end of this year, where is our revenue, profit, and key measurables going to be? And then getting on the same page with, what are those 3 to 7 top goals for the year? Maybe this is hiring the team, mapping out the Canadian landscape, right? So like whatever your goals are for the year, just making sure your team is all aligned on what their priorities are. And then we look at quarterly rocks. So in the next 90 days, what is our revenue, profit, and key measurables going to be? And then what are those 3 to 7 most important things we must get done this quarter? Who is accountable for making sure those things get done? And then finally, we have the issues list, which is sort of the parking lot of, here's all the stuff we know we need to sort out at some point in the future, but it's not a priority for this quarter. So that's the first tool in the EOS toolkit.
Thank you. It seems like it's the first actual stone in the building, on the foundation, when you actually, that's what makes it team building, to share the vision,
Exactly.
to complete it together.
Exactly. That's the
Yeah.
first piece. So as we look at the people component and making sure you have the right people on your team, there's 2 pieces to getting the right people. So first, we call this right people, right seats. So right
Right.
people means people who share your core values, right? Especially when you're building off of an existing business, how do you capture the heart and soul of what has made your team successful to make sure that you're picking the right people for your team as you look to grow? So the way that we do that, the way that we get to right people, is through a tool called the People Analyzer. So as you build out your core values, that first question in the Vision Traction Organizer, then you use it to evaluate different people. So as you're going through a recruiting process, you're saying, do these people really share our core values? And you can use a tool, plus, minus, or plus is most of the time, minus is is usually not, plus, minus some of the time, yes, some of the time, no. This just helps you make sure that the people you're hiring are living your core values and helps you to pinpoint people issues as they come up in your business. The second part of this is right seats, right? So how do you make sure people are actually sitting in the right seat, doing the work that they love to do and are great at? And those are the two elements you need to build a great team: people who share your core values and people who are good at their job. So then we get to right seats is using a tool called the accountability chart. So this just helps you map out what should the team look like and what should people be accountable for. So typically we want to map out what are those sort of key functions that make our business run. Who is going to be the person who sort of runs the day to day and holds everybody accountable, integrates all the other pieces. And then we typically have a visionary. We just want to get you to think about what are those right seats that we need to run this business? And then what is each person accountable for, right? So we're not building out huge job descriptions. We're just saying, let's just be really clear on who owns what, who's accountable for making what results happen. And then we figure out who is the right people for those roles. So for example, marketing and sales, their key responsibilities might be LMA, that's our term for leading, managing, and holding people accountable, all the work you do to oversee your team. Maybe doing marketing, hitting the sales numbers, actually doing the selling, and account management. So that's the sort of level that we suggest in terms of mapping out your accountability chart. And then you can go recruit for those people. So we want to map this out for the whole business, right? So as you're picturing, what is our Canadian operation going to look like? What is this business going to look like? You can map out your whole team using this structure so that now you know which roles you need to hire for. And when you're trying to find the right people in those seats, we use a tool called GWC. So you want to evaluate whether people get it, as in the work comes naturally to them. This is the kind of thing they're naturally good at. Whether they want it, they actually really care and are excited about this opportunity and want to show up on Monday morning excited to get the job done. And they have the capacity to do it. So when you bring those two pieces together around right people and right seats, that can help you to figure out who is the right person for each of your seats. So once you have your clear vision and you have the right people in the right seats, now how do you have visibility into what's working and what's not working in the business and what you expect? So here's where the data component comes into play. So the first tool here is a scorecard. So what we want to ask ourselves here is, what does a good week look like in the business? How do we know if we're successful or not? So when we build a scorecard, here's an example of what this could look like for you, right? So if you look at this second column here, we want to figure out what are the types of measurables, the types of numbers we need to see every week that tells us this was a good week, this was a bad week. We are on track, we are off track, right? It's just those high level numbers that look at all the different elements of your business. Is your business development pipeline doing what you need it to do? Are your sales converting the way you need them to? Is your operations team executing like it should? Are your financials in order? Are you collecting your bills, right? So what are those key metrics that you need to see every week that give you that pulse on your business? Who owns each one? So one person's always accountable for keeping a number on track. And then what's your goal every week, right? That's why we pair this with 13 weeks of data, because our goal is to get away from saying, oh no, it's the end of the quarter, how did we miss our revenue numbers? To saying, well, it's week 3 and we haven't hit our sales calls numbers for the last 3 weeks. We're going to get in there and intervene now and make sure the number gets back on track so we have a chance at hitting our quarterly goals, right? So it just creates a lot of clarity and alignment around expectations and gives everybody visibility into what's working and what's not working every week in the business. Ultimately, our goal with data is to have every single person in the business have a measurable. So every single seat has the right measurables for them. So 1 to 3 numbers that every week each person is accountable for keeping on track. And this helps you to distribute accountability across your company so that if everyone does their job, if everyone hits their numbers, you know you're going to achieve your goals for the year, right? Okay, so now that we have the vision component, the people component, and the data component, now we're going to look at the issues component. So how do we solve issues as they come up? So the first discipline here is around the issues list, right? We talked about the issues list a little bit during the vision component, but this is less about the idea of creating a list and more about the idea of creating a culture where people feel comfortable putting up their hands and raising issues. And this can be uncomfortable for some people, right? To say, I can't tell my boss that I think his idea is bad, right? But that's the only way that you're actually going to figure out what's holding your company back is if there is a safe space where people feel they can raise issues. And we use the term issues very broadly, right? It can be what are the barriers getting in your way this week? What are the opportunities that you see to do things better? What's a really cool idea you've had that you want to run by the team, right? So issues is just stuff we should talk about. For this, we use a tool called IDSing. So IDSing is where we identify, discuss, and solve. So identify is all about what is the root cause of the issue, right? Because what's written on your issues list might just be a symptom. We really want to dig and try to figure out what is the root cause of that issue, so we're not just putting out, fire, like we're actually getting it to it at the root. Then we want to discuss it briefly. Then we want to move to solve. And solving means, what is someone in this room going to do in the next 7 days to make this issue go away forever, right? So how do we solve them for good so we're not fighting the same battles over and over and over again? The next component that is all about creating clarity around expectations and giving you the ability to hold people accountable is the traction component. So this is about just making sure everyone's aligned and there's discipline and accountability in the business. So the first tool here is rocks. So rocks are just 90-day priorities. So we want to make sure we have the 3 to 7 company priorities, the most important things for the company to achieve this quarter, clearly defined. Then for every member of the leadership team, what is each of their 3 to 7 most important priorities for this quarter? Eventually getting to the point where every single person in the business has 1 to 3 rocks for the quarter identified. This just gives you a framework to all have a discussion, agree on what the priorities are, and then not deviate from that, or at least make a strategic, intentional decision to deviate from that, so that every quarter you can look back and say, hey, look at this. I did 3 things this quarter. You did 3 things this quarter. Collectively, we got 20 big things done this quarter. Great. We are well on our way to achieving our plan for the year. The next piece around gaining traction is having the right meeting pulse in your business. So there's 3 levels at which we look at meetings within the EOS framework. So the first is annual planning, right? So that's where you do that big picture thinking, big picture planning for the year ahead. Then you look at quarterly planning, right? So every 90 days, which is human nature, that every 90 days we get off track, we get unfocused. How do we make sure every 90 days we get back together, reflect on what we've learned the last quarter, realign around that vision, and build a plan for the next quarter so we're all totally aligned on what the priorities are. And in between that, we have a weekly meeting pulse. So every week you're meeting to make sure you're still on track with that. And we offer a very structured meeting template for weekly meetings. It's called the Level 10 meeting. So you want to hear the good news that's happening in the business, look at your scorecard. Are our numbers on track or off track? Our rocks, the things we said are the most important priorities for this quarter, on track or off track. Customer employee headlines. Are people happy here? Are people not happy here? Are our customers raving or are they ticked off at us? We need to hear about those things. Then we dig into a to-do list to drive accountability from week to week. And we spend most of our time IDSing our most important issues. So this is where you can really dig in and solve, not just talk about, solve the issues that are getting in the way of you achieving what you need to achieve. And then we conclude. So once you've done those 5 components, the process component is really about having a playbook for your business, right? So if you have a way of getting things done that's worked for you, you want to make sure that as you hand that off to somebody else to help run your business, that they are on the same page with how the most important things in your business are done. So we need to document it, right? We need to write out what are the key steps to our processes. And we typically look at, there's only a handful of core processes, not 50 different core processes. It's usually 6 to 10 core processes that make your business run. And then we just want to document them and really simplify them. So we're not trying to document 100% of detail and build these 500-page manuals. We just want to get aligned on the 20% of key steps that drive 80% of the results, just so we're on the same page with what the key steps are. So again, as you hand this off to somebody, they have a playbook for how to run your business in your company way. And then we need to make sure they're actually being followed by all, right? So it's no one thing to document them, but how do you make sure everybody on the team has actually been trained on the right way to do it and is being measured and managed on actually following that core process? So fundamentally, that is the EOS model, and those are the tools that are available to you to help you get your team aligned around the vision, to make sure they're getting traction, and to build a really healthy team. So let me show you where you can dig in to learn more about these. So there is a whole library full of books in the Traction Library. And then eosworldwide.com. What I would invite you to do is reach out to me. Here's how I can help you. So first is I can send you that link for the free tool. If you are saying, yeah, I want to start doing this in my business, I'm more than happy to hop on a call with you and answer any questions you have about how to get started using this in your business. The third is I'll actually run team workshops on this. And then finally, if you look at this and you're like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what we need this now, we need it fast, we need it right. There are over 700 EOS implementers like me around the world. And so I can help you find somebody in your local market who can help your team work through this.
Jennifer, thank you very much for your time. I'm sure that our audience received many valuable insights on how to build a successful business in Canada, how to communicate with your team, and basically you can see everything clear without over controlling them and get a good alignment and envision with your
Yes,
team. I
exactly.
hope I hope everything helps our audience in their aspiration to move to Canada.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me, Anna. This was a pleasure.
Yes, that's it for today, folks. Stay tuned for more tips and insight on starting successful business in Canada.